Okay, so I know I'm in the middle of doing Twilight, but I really just felt like reading the second book in the Transcendent series, Outlier by Lisa Beeson. I just really felt like reading it. So that's what we're gonna do. We're just gonna do Twilight and Outlier kind of back and forth for the chapters. So here we go. The third book we've started filming for this channel. The second book in the Transcendent series called Outlier. And here we go. This is the prologue. His daughter is alive. Everyone had assumed that she was dead, that the Anunnaki had destroyed her for what she was. But a part of him had always known she still lived. A part of him he had tried to bury because it was too dangerous and painful to hope. She had disappeared without a trace, and no matter how hard he tried and how far he searched, he couldn't find her. Until now. She was calling to him, not with words, but he could feel her need for him like a tiny ember in the darkness. It was faint and very distant, but it was there. "I'm coming, Senna." He followed her call, pushing himself to his utter limits, striving to find her dream. He knew that he'd never be able to go this far on his own. Even though she was helping him, he knew he'd only have the strength to do this once. But once was enough if he was able to make contact with his little girl. When he finally found the dream, her mind was simultaneously calling to him and blocking him out. But he forged ahead through the resistance until he was able to make it through into a world of gray mist. He looked down at himself and realized he was just a hazy, indistinct shadow, and his heart broke. She doesn't remember what I look like? He tried to call out to her, but he had no voice. She didn't remember anything about him, but the mere essence of his presence. Then he saw her. She was looking around, confused, lost in the mist, and she couldn't see him right in front of her. Our miracle child. Senna was alive, and she had grown so much. She was beautiful, like her mother, but he could also see himself in her as well. The best attributes of both of them, the perfect combination. How could anyone see her as an abomination? Just being around her, how could they not feel that she was meant to be, that he and Tele had been brought together for a reason, that she was a brilliant jewel amongst a sea of stones? Ever since her conception, so much had been stacked against her. But not only had she survived, she thrived, and he couldn't help the surge of pride that swelled within his chest as he looked down at his child. Then the searing sensation of loss burned through him at the realization that he had missed so much of her ephemeral childhood. He raged at the injustice and all that had been denied to him. But she was alive, and that's all that mattered now. He tried to wrap her up in his arms, but they passed right through her. As they did, a part of her must have recognized him, because he became more solid. He was still indistinct, but now he was able to lift her, and she wrapped herself around him, resting her chin on his shoulder and leaning her head against his, just like she used to when she was little. He put his hand on the back of her head, holding her tightly, and basking in the all-consuming joy of being able to hold his lost daughter again. He wanted to tell her so much, how much he loved her, how sorry he was that he had failed to protect her and her mother, how he wanted her to be safe and happy. He couldn't vocally tell her these things, so he willed her to know the truth of his heart. He wanted to know what had happened that made her call out to him, even though she didn't remember him. He did feel some solace in the fact that she was growing up in a place where the Anunnaki couldn't find her, and that he was able to be here for her when she needed him. But I wish I could do so much more for you, precious girl." He held her until he sensed the fog forming behind him, signaling that she was about to wake up, and he knew he had to leave. "Live, my beautiful daughter. Grow strong and come back to me." Ari woke up with her face smashed up against the leather of the couch. She vaguely remembered dreaming of being held by strong, comforting arms. She couldn't remember seeing a face, but it felt like home. I don't normally interject, but in case you don't remember, that was in the last book when she was at Kale's apartment and she woke up. That's the same lines that were there, so it kind of connected. Chapter 1. Ari was dreamwalking again. She knew it as soon as she emerged out of the white swirling fog. She had that feeling of being a lucid outsider, like she had felt in her brother Hector's dream. But instead of being in a Thomas Kincaid version of her old backyard, this place looked more like a M.C. Escher version of an urban war zone. It was unlike any city Ari had ever seen before. She was standing on the cracked asphalt of a street littered with burned-out cars, rubble, and debris in the middle of a deserted maze of buildings, bridges, and dark alleyways. It was a mishmash of Middle Eastern, European, and American architecture all mingled together with quirks of impossible angles and perspectives that seemed to morph even more the longer she looked at them. She heard the booming sound of a low-flying jet and looked up to see it streak across the overcast sky that was heavy with menacing clouds tinged with a murky burnt orange color, which matched the layer of dust and sand that blanketed everything. Explosions and bursts of rapid automatic gunfire could be heard in the distance, going off every couple minutes or so. Whose dream is this? Considering that her hair was short, she figured it had to be someone she met after she had left Cass and Jean-Baptiste's back in New Orleans. Then suddenly, the wall of one of the buildings behind her exploded outward with a deafening blast. She was knocked to the ground, forcing a scream from her lungs. She reflexively curled up and covered her head as the dust and debris rained down around her. Even though this was only a dream, physically, it felt very real. After a second of muffled silence, a man's voice cut through the high-pitched ringing in her ears. "Ari? Ari, is that you?" "Adam!" she screamed, pushing herself up and frantically looking around. "Where are you?" She coughed through her dirt-choked throat. "I'm coming! Don't move!" he yelled. Of course this is Adam's dream. Having been an MP in the army and deployed 3 times, he's bound to have nightmares of war. Just as the dust cleared around her, a spray of bullets hailed down from the upper windows of a nearby building. Fear tore through her, obliterating reason and making her panic. Ignoring his instructions to stay put, she ran in the direction she thought Adam's voice had come from. Having just been shot in real life, the pain was still fresh in her mind. She didn't know what would happen if she got shot in someone else's dream, but she really didn't want to find out. "Adam!" she screamed as she ran for cover behind the scorched metal skeleton of an unrecognizable car. "Stop moving!" he yelled, his voice coming from a different direction from where it had been before. "They're shooting at me!" Ari screamed back. The sound of bullets pinging against metal galvanized her into action. Running from the meager protection of the burned-out car, she cut down an alley away from the gunfire and in the direction she thought Adam's voice had come from this time. The alley led to a spiraling cement staircase. She ran up as fast as she could, but at the top she discovered that the stairs dead-ended into a sandstone wall. Pounding on the wall in frustration, she turned around and ran back down the stairs. Except instead of leading back to the alley like she expected, she found herself at the end of a long, winding, covered walkway, like a strange version of what would be found in a European castle. On the right side were open stone arches that looked out over the peculiar cityscape, and the left side was a stone wall hung with enormous age-stained mirrors. How the heck did I end up here? "Ari, where are you?" Adam shouted, his voice muted by distance. "I don't know," she answered frantically as she walked quickly along the walkway. More explosions and gunfire could be heard throughout the sprawling city. About halfway through the walkway, she looked out through one of the arches to see if she could see Adam below. There was no sign of him, and now she was lost. She was about to panic again when she heard a familiar voice behind her. "Calm yourself and focus, little one." "Absalom!" Ari quickly turned around to see Absalom standing beside her reflection inside one of the mirrors. She glanced to her left, and no one was there. He was only in the mirror. She had only seen him twice before, once in her own dream, and the second when she had gone into Hector's dream. He looked just as he had before. Long dark gray hair and a beard, dark tan skin, and almost black, fathomless, intelligent eyes. He reminded Ari of an ancient Bedouin tribesman, wearing a gray sweater, khakis, and mismatched socks. "What do I do, Absalom?" she asked desperately, stepping closer to the mirror. Even as a reflection, he still radiated calmness and assurance. You must learn to be still and focus. Stop overthinking and trust your instincts. Feel where he is and follow the trail." "But I'm inside his dream. Isn't he everywhere?" Ari asked, confused, gesturing to the world around them. "How can I track someone in their own subconscious?" "There are countless worlds created and destroyed in the realm of dreams. His mind created this place, but it is not him. You know him, little one. You know his energy. Now feel where he is and follow the trail." Ari took a deep breath and closed her eyes, hoping for something to happen. Okay, I have no idea how to do any of what he just said. She had learned Kale's ability for tracking people by following the path of their energy signature. But that only worked if you could find the path, and she hadn't seen Adam's path anywhere. Ari opened her eyes with a huff of frustration. "It's not working! This isn't how Kale does it!" "You are not Kale, little one," he said pointedly. Oh? Oh. "Why do you keep calling me that?" Ari wondered aloud. She wasn't that little anymore, and ever since that first dream, that was the only thing he ever called her. Not Kira, not Ari, just little one. Wait, Ruby had called me that too, back in the library when I was 5. But it was only that one time, and when she said it, her voice got deeper. Did Absalom talk through her? I'm hearing stuff. He looked at her wistfully, like he was remembering something fondly. "It's what I've always called you," he said, doing that thing where he only says what he thinks she needed to know, even though she was sure he could tell her everything. It was so incredibly frustrating, because he could tell her who her birth parents were, and how she ended up on Earth, but he never seemed to think that was important enough for her to know. But before she could call him out on it, there was another explosion close by that rocked the walkway, almost throwing her off balance, knocking loose sand and dust from the ceiling's crevices, and cracking a couple of the mirrors. Absalom looked at her intently. "I don't have much time, so you must listen." He paused to make sure she was paying attention. You've done well staying and growing in the light, but there may come a time when you will be surrounded by darkness, and the only light you'll find will be your own. You must trust in that light and shine, little one. Ari nodded, even though she didn't like that business about being surrounded by darkness one bit. Gunfire bursts echoed close by. Ari's head snapped towards the sound, and her body tensed, ready to run. She went back to the arches to see where the gunfire was coming from. "You must leave when the fog appears," Absalom warned behind her. "You don't want to get caught here when he wakes." "Are you saying I could get trapped here?" she asked, turning back around to see that he was already gone. Only her frightened reflection stared back at her. The last thing she wanted to do was to be trapped in this nightmare world forever. She closed her eyes again and tried to be still and focus, like Absalom told her to do. She tried to feel for Adam's energy, but nothing. Fighting down her growing panic, she tried again. "Come on, you can do this." Then she remembered that she had always been able to tell which of her family members or close friends had come into the room when her back was turned. She didn't know how. They just felt different. Maybe if I combine that feeling with my new ability to track energy paths. Absalom is right. I know Adam. I just need to get out of my head and just feel. Ari took a deep, cleansing breath and cleared her mind, trying to feel in tune with the energies around her. Like a shark sensing the bioelectric fields around itself, she stretched that sense out further and further until she found an energy that was familiar. "It's Adam! It has to be!" She honed in on him and focused only on his energy. Then she latched onto it like she was throwing an imaginary lasso over him and hanging on to the end of the rope. As soon as she did, it felt like when she found the blue and green stones. His energy was pulling at her like a magnet. Opening her eyes, she followed the pull like she was a compass needle, and he was due north. Ari followed the pull and ran to the end of the walkway, where it opened to a large cathedral-like room, covered in colorful mosaic tiles. As the sound of her running feet echoed in the vast chamber, she lamented that she couldn't stay longer to appreciate the beauty of it. Adam's energy was pulling her across the room towards a massive set of heavy wooden doors with large metal rings for handles. Ari grabbed one of the rings and pulled with all her strength, but the door wouldn't budge. She tried again and again. Releasing the ring in frustration, she paced agitatedly back and forth, trying to think of what to do. Then she had it. Tapping into her inner energy, she went into her hyperspeed mode, that Kale had called sifting. But instead of using her speed, she used the strength that came with it. Grabbing the ring once more, she hardly had to pull as the massive door swung open and she sped through. She continued to sift as she followed Adam's pull, along a long corridor made of gold, down a set of looping steps that defied the laws of gravity, straight to a set of dark green metal doors. They were chained and padlocked together, but the lock was no match for her sifting strength. The doors burst open to reveal a second-floor corner apartment with a big chunk of the back walls blown out. Ari slowed down and walked to the edge of the apartment to see down to the streets below. She focused on where the pole told her Adam was, and her heart did a flip. It worked! She was able to track him just by sensing his energy. But the thrill was short-lived when she actually comprehended what she was seeing. Adam was in his army fatigues, and he was with a small group of soldiers. They were taking cover behind a broken wall of a bombed-out building near the one she was in, trading fire with the enemy. They were trapped. The enemy had them pinned down, and soon they would be overtaken. One of Adam's soldiers moved out from behind the wall to check on the enemy's positions and got shot in the neck. He went down quickly, his lifeblood spurting out in rhythmic bursts like a macabre fountain. Ari knew it was just a dream, but the shock of it was almost too much, and she thought she was going to be sick. Adam left his position to pull the soldier out of the line of fire and tried in vain to stop the bleeding with his hands. Now that the soldier was facing towards her, Ari saw that he couldn't be more than 18 or 19 years old, and he was clutching onto Adam for dear life. His eyes were wild and silently imploring Adam to save him, until his breathing slowed, his body went limp, and his eyes glazed over. Ari flashed back to the memory she had stolen from Adam of the little girl he had tried to save that died of a chest wound, and her heart broke for him. Poor Adam. She couldn't stand it anymore. The enemy was relentlessly firing at the soldiers and the man she had come to think of as a family. She had to do something. Even if that something was getting shot again, she would do anything to save her family. Quickly assessing where the enemy was positioned by pinpointing the trajectory of the bullets being fired, Ari cupped her hands to her mouth and yelled at the top of her lungs, "Hey, bad guys! Over here!" Then she waved her arms frantically, giving them a chance to see her. As soon as the firing stopped, she burst into action. Jumping and grabbing onto a piece of rebar sticking out from the side of the building, she ignored the pain of the rough metal scraping against her palms. Then she used her momentum to swing over to the top of the broken piece of wall. While dodging the bullets zipping past her, she jumped down to a pile of dirt and rubble, skiing down the loose scree to the ground. As soon as she got her footing, she ran out into the street and began waving her arms again, trying to keep their attention away from the soldiers. With the enemy distracted, Adam's soldiers took them out one by one from the rooftops and from their perches in the windows of neighboring buildings. The soldiers were able to get most of them, but not all. Bullets sprayed at her feet, kicking up a cloud of dust into the air, obstructing her vision. She felt strong arms swoop in, wrap around her, and lift her off the ground, taking her out of the line of fire. "Adam!" Ari held on to him, clutching tightly to the back of his uniform as he ran into the safety of another building. "It's all right, kid. I got you," he said into her ear as he ran deeper into the building. The interior looked like a strange abandoned business office. He refused to put her down, holding on to her just as tightly as she was holding on to him, almost as if she'd disappear again if he were to let go. It had been one of the hardest things she had ever had to do, to leave Adam and his sister Jamie behind. When she got the message from Cass telling her they are coming, she hadn't known whether the they were the Suits or the Shades, but she did know that she had to lead them away from the Lennoxes. They had become like her favorite aunt and uncle. She loved them, and it would kill her if something bad happened to them because of her. Adam kicked open a door at the end of a long hallway and ducked inside. It was a small room that opened up to a paved patio that was walled off from the rest of the city. He put her down in a chair and knelt in front of her. "Are you okay? Are you hurt?" he asked as he dusted her off and checked her for any injuries. When he found none besides the scrapes on her palms, he let out a sigh of relief, and then got really pissed off. "Don't you ever do something like that again! Do you hear me? You could have been killed, damn it!" The raw pain in his eyes nearly broke her. "I couldn't just stand by and let them shoot at you. I had to do something." She looked at the bloodstains on his hands and uniform. "I'm sorry about that soldier." The anger left his eyes as he looked down at his empty hands and hung his head dejectedly. "No matter what I do, he always dies." He seemed only half conscious that this was a dream, and Arya figured that the young soldier dying might have been part of an actual memory. Jeez, how many people have died in his arms? Tears prickled behind her eyes as she leaned forward and wrapped her arms around his neck. She wanted to take away all his pain and sorrow. She wanted to fix what was broken. So she closed her eyes and tried to envelop him in positive energy, flooding him with her love and hope to wash away the hurt. Her gifts had to be good for something. If not to heal the people she loved, then what was the point? The tension in his muscles relaxed, and he hugged her back, with one hand on the back of her head, just like her dad used to do when she was little. Wait, that's not right. Dad never did that. She was distracted from that thought as he released her head and drew back. She opened her eyes and saw that his eyes shined with tears as he looked at her in awe. Un momento, por favor. His eyes shined with tears as he looked at her in awe. I didn't know how lost I was until you came along. It gave me purpose again. He paused, getting a hold of himself. Why did you just run off like that? Why didn't you trust me to keep you safe? Ari shook her head in denial. It wasn't like that. Didn't you read my letter? I left to protect you. Adam grabbed her arms like he wanted to shake some sense into her. You are the child. I am the adult. I'm supposed to protect you, not the other way around. After everything that she'd been through the past couple months, she didn't feel much like a child anymore. Adam tightened his grip on her arms. No! Get that look out of your eyes right now. I won't allow you to become jaded. A nearby explosion shook the building. Adam took off his helmet and put it on Ari's head. It was too big and kind of sweaty, so she was about to take it off. But one look at the warning on Adam's face made her reconsider. She looked down at her hands in her lap, which were starting to sting something awful. You went looking for me, didn't you? Of course I did, Adam said as he stood up and raked his hand through his hair. The familiar habit made her smile. Jesus, Ari! For someone so smart, you've been acting so stupid, he admonished, effectively wiping the smile from her face. Singing in the street like that, where people could film you? Frolicking around Chicago and intentionally putting it on the internet for everyone and their mother to see? What were you thinking? His words hit her like bricks to the gut. I was just trying to earn some money to eat. I didn't know anyone was filming me sing, she said softly. Damn it, kid, it's the 21st century. Everyone is filming everything. And you aren't in some stupid comic book. Covering up half your face isn't going to fool anyone with half a brain. A girl of your age and description, exhibiting atypical behavior, it doesn't take much to put two and two together. Ari stood up and started pacing. It was all her fault the suits found her in Cannes. She had led them right to their door. By the time I got to that store in Chicago, it was surrounded by the Chicago PD. Excuse me. Thank you. By the time I got to that store in Chicago, it was surrounded by the Chicago PD and FBI agents, who all thought you and some other kid were armed terrorists. Ari's head whipped over to look at Adam. Wait, what about Jamie? You just left her unprotected? Jamie's fine. An army buddy of mine is looking after her. But what if the suits or the shades come after you left? She asked worriedly. That was the whole reason why I had to fake my death in the first place, so that my family wouldn't be tortured into giving them information about where I am. What if they torture Jamie, Adam? She was starting to become frantic. Adam walked over and put his hands on her shoulders to steady her, and said slowly, No one came, Ari. Yeah, because I led them away, she said, not so sure. Adam shook his head. When I realized you were gone, and I found your letter and the note, I called up one of my high school friends who's a cop in town and told him to keep an eye out for any meth heads with red eyes or government agent types in black sedans nosing around. He thought I was crazy, but he promised he'd let me know if he saw anyone of that description. Adam looked intently into her eyes. I haven't gotten a call from him or my buddy watching Jamie. Ari's mind was reeling. Had Cass been wrong about Gordon Reinhold and the fact that someone followed her to Paradise Glades? What was going on? But... Boys! Hey! You each have a stick. Play nicely. Thank you. Boys. 1 moment. Ari's mind was reeling. Had Cass been wrong about Gordon Reinhold and the fact that someone followed her to Paradise Glades? What was going on? But why would Cass send that note if no one was coming? Adam shrugged and shook his head. I don't know, but now that I've found you, I can start figuring out a way to get you out of this mess. Uh-oh. He doesn't know I'm with Cam and Kayla in real life. About that, she said as she paced some more, trying to think of how to tell him. Then she saw the white swirling fog forming out on the other side of the patio. Crap, already? She turned back to Adam, feeling absolutely wretched that she had to leave him again. She didn't even bother hiding the pain on her face. I have to go. His brow creased in confusion. What? No, I just found you. I promised to protect you, and I will. Please trust me. She felt like she was being torn apart. She didn't want to cause him any more pain, but she didn't want to be trapped here either. I do trust you, Adam, I swear, she said lamely, not sure how to explain. But remember that really bright guy I told you I saw in Savannah? Well, he found me again. And it ends up that he's like me. And he said he'd get me out of Chicago and keep me safe if I helped him find more stones, like the blue and green ones I found. What? Who the hell is this guy? What do you mean, like you? Is he a progeny? He is one of the alien races that made the progeny, she said, not wanting to go into how Kayla had told her that she was an impossible mixture of those races, and according to the laws of nature shouldn't even exist. She figured Adam had enough on his plate right now. Adam raked his hair, trying to wrap his mind around what she just said and all that it implied about her. Then he shook his head determinedly. I vowed to myself that I'd protect you and stay by your side. We'll figure this out. Ari shook her head sadly as she walked backwards towards the doorway that led out to the patio. Ari, Adam said as he reached out for her to bring her back. But before he could touch her, she sifted out of his reach, closer to the bank of fog. His eyes widened in shock. What the? He knew that she could do that, but actually saying it was probably bizarre. I'm so sorry, Adam. I don't want to hurt you, but I have to go. Tears spilled from her eyes as she took off his helmet and placed it on the ground. I'm safe, I promise. You don't have to worry. Ari, wait! If you really want to help me, then please check on my family. Make sure they're okay. Then before he could respond, she ran into the white swirling fog. And that was the very exciting first chapter of Outlier, the second book in the Transcendent series by Lisa Beeson. And I'm going to end this video, and I'm going to go right into chapter 2, because, guys, it's so exciting! I love this book. I love this series. Okay, hopefully some of you start joining me, because you're missing out. This book is just so good. Okay, I'm ending it here, and then I'm going to start the recording of the second chapter. Have a wonderful day. Peace.